Hey, I'm Mr. Ghost. If you love true horror stories, consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. The stories you'll hear are shared by our audience from Reddit, and to keep their original essence, I read them exactly as they were written. Before we begin, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? Now, let's dive into the darkness. I am not anyone important. I have no title of influence, no position of power, and hell, I am not even a cog in a machine of any significance. I am just a dead-end worker in an end-of-the-line sea town. So why have I been chosen? It all started a few months ago. It began small, my once comforting dreams. My solace being interrupted by something dark. At first it was a shadowy figure standing beyond the walls of my vision. Out of sight, but not out of mind. An intense figure who was trying with every ounce of its being to draw my attention, calling to me from the reaches of my dreams. They were never visible, but I knew they were there, in places they should not be. My once sweet dreams, the only escape from the mundanity of life, were slowly becoming heavier in my mind. My days became longer. Why was the shadow haunting my dreams? Why had my dreams become a sanctuary for this hidden darkness? These questions lead to many sleepless nights. The question of why all of this was happening kept me awake, laying in my bed, scared to embrace sleep. By the 7th night, I finally saw it. I was amid a pleasant dream, wandering the streets of a small Mediterranean town in the middle of the day. The salty smell of the ocean luring me through the roads of the bustling town, following the signs to the port. The weather got darker and the wind got stronger. The further I got, the more melancholy the once lively town became. The people retreated to their houses. The seagulls migrated away, and the once sunny sky was filled with dark clouds and the air filled with a drizzle of rain. Eventually, I turned a corner onto an old cobbled road overlooking the agitated sea. Peering over the side of the road, all I could see was a small port being battered by the waves, devoid of all life, except for one lone figure standing at the end of a pier. They were nothing but a shadow, black as a starless sky, no discernible outline or features, but I could still tell, even eyeless, the figure was staring at me. I could feel its eyes upon me, staring through me, deep past the layers of flesh and blood, directly into my soul. My chest tightened as I looked upon its barren gaze that left me as cold as the vacuum of space. We maintained eye contact for what felt like hours. I could not move my focus away from the nothingness of its eyes. I felt terror. I felt isolated. I felt purpose. Every night this dream played in my head the exact same way, until I was awoken by the sanctuary of my alarm, in a bed drenched in sweat, my arms covered in goosebumps and my heart filled with fear. My performance at work was dropping, due to the lack of rest. My sleep was providing, my eyes were resting upon dark bags, and my mind was void of clarity, whilst it was fogged by questions. My friends became distant, and my colleagues estranged, as I lost my warmth and patience, and became cold and detached from my life. My thoughts had been clouded by the figure on the pier. They could not be just a simple nightmare. No nightmare would haunt a man like this. These dreams had meaning, hate, and malicious intent behind them. I knew it. I could feel it in my bones. These were no ordinary dreams. This does not happen to any sane, ordinary person. Every night had divulged into my frantically searching for meaning everywhere I could. First, I started at the old library, looking for texts that would bear the words that would lead me to my salvation. When this well ran dry, I searched all across the internet, old forums, posts decades old, and every dark wiki I could find. I read mentions of shadowy figures in dreams, and the delusions of madmen who had talked of a shadow man beckoning them from beyond the veil of sleep. My paranoia caused me to eat through my fingernails. My studies kept me awake till the early hours of the morning. I was scared to be with it, as it stood staring deep into my soul at the end of the pier. I could tell that it knew everything about me, but I still yet to know anything about it. What was it trying to tell me? Why was it here? Why me? In my dreams it never uttered a word, but I knew deep in my soul that it was trying to tell me something. One night everything was different. I could feel it as soon as my head hit the pillow, and my eyes closed. I stumbled through the same streets that I had dreamt 1,000 times before, but I felt so lost, and the environment felt so foreign. The sky was black, not a cloud nor a star in sight. The streets were desolate, and the air was still. I was standing in a city devoid of warmth and sound. The windows were just cold black portals into emptiness. The town in which I had become familiar with had wilted away and died. As I finally made my way to the cobbled road where I overlooked the port, I stood in shock. The water was a still reflective sheet of glass with no sign of life, a mirror reflecting the nothingness of the night sky. The dock itself sat starved of the human touch. It was not there. I made my way down an old weathered stairway that creaked at every step, piercing through the uncomfortable silence. As I walked up the dock, the goosebumps prickled up my arms with every step, as every movement was a step further than I had ever been into the unknown. The unease crept up my spine as I made my way to where the shadow once stood. I stared at the ground of where it would have been, and in its place was a sigil carved into the wooden boards, a circle surrounded by runes of a language that looked uncomprehendingly old. Inside were lines in a pattern that I did not recognize. The more I looked, the more my head began to burn. It was like my consciousness was wilting away the more my eyes gazed upon this imagery. My stare was broken by the whispers of a language never spoken traveling through the wind. As I looked up from the dock, my eyes locked onto a small boat in the distance, sailing away beyond the reach of anyone. A rowing boat was braving the ocean as the waves swept it further and further from the docks, and in the boat was a dark figure, rowing further and further away until the waves swallowed him whole. This dream kept happening to me, night after night for weeks. I would get to the edge of the dock, and he would sail out of my reach. We would keep eye contact from the shore, until he sailed over the horizon, and I woke up suffering yet another night of restless sleep. It drained me physically and psychologically, until last night. Last night was different. Last night I had a dream so vivid and so clear. It was a culmination of all the torment these nightly visions had on me. I gained clarity and could finally see the truth. The dream was trying to guide me too. As I made my way down the docks, I could see the shadow rowing out to sea under the open skies on the sea of tranquility. I made my way down the dock. There sat a lone rowboat waiting for me. I knew I must follow the shadow. It was more than just a herald. It was a guide. I got into the boat and grabbed the oars like the horns of a bull, and I started rowing. This was the furthest I had ever gotten before, and I was determined. I knew that tonight was the night it would all become clear. No more riddles wrapped in fog or whispers lost to the wind. The water beneath me shimmered like glass, mirroring a sky scattered with stars I felt I had known in another life. With each stroke, the world behind me faded, and the weight I had carried for so long began to lift. As I paddled along the still black ocean, I gazed at the night sky so clear I could see the stars, the galaxies, and the unknown. I rowed for hours. These hours turned into days, and the days turned to months, and the months into years, and the years into millennia, and the millennia into eons. I saw the stars come and go. Galaxies burn and reform, and the universe wilter away and die, and then be reborn. I witnessed the birth and death of the universe rush by me like grains of sand in an hourglass. My head began to burn up as my brain was filled with secrets I could not even begin to comprehend. Whispers cut through the silence and rushed into my head. Words of love, of hate, of sin, and of lust. My vision blurred as I kept rowing forth, the knowledge in my head getting louder and louder. My head felt on the edge, my brain on the verge of exploding, until suddenly everything went back to the still silence, and my head felt hollow. The knowledge of every word spoken, and every thought ever thought emptied from my brain, only leaving an empty gap in my mind, a hole that can only be satiated with the barrage of information that has left me feeling so hollow. I softly sobbed as I kept rowing, following the shadow rowing in tandem upon the horizon. My body ached as I turned to see land rise upon the horizon. As I made my way to the shore, I trudged through the still water, making my first step on land for an eternity. The sand felt like the soft embrace of a bed on my feet. Although I had not aged physically, As I stumbled up the beach growing weary, but refusing to take any rest, I trundled along chasing after the shadowy figure who was getting further and further away from me. I crossed sand dunes. This place felt more desolate than the empty ocean I had just traveled. I watched as the figure climbed over a dune with ease. My body was sore and I was aching from my head to my toes. Yet my determination for the answers of all my questions would not let my body fade away. I scaled up the dune on my hands and knees, scooping the sand in my hand and pulling my body further to the pinnacle. I could not just let everything I have been chasing for these harrowing past months leave me in the dust. I put every fiber of my being into each movement, pushing myself to my limits to get to the top of this ridge. As I clawed my way upward, each grain of sand felt like it carried the weight of my regrets, my doubts, and the whispers of every sleepless night that had led me here. My breath came in ragged gasps, throat dry, muscles trembling, but I pressed on, inch by inch. My fingers found a firmer patch of sand near the crest, and with a final desperate heave, I pulled myself up. The wind greeted me like an old friend, cool and sharp against the sweat on my face. A feeling of triumph came across me as I rose to my knees, my chest heaving, vision pulsating slightly from the exertion. As I looked up, I was greeted by the gaze of the shadowed figure. I swear that this close-up to them I could almost see their features. As I stared into what must have been where its eyes are, or at least used to be, the figure began to move. It kept what felt like its gaze on me, but pointed over the open desert before the dune which we stood upon. In the distance stood a black pyramid that stands in solitude amongst the sandy dunes, its sleek, perfect architecture standing as an affront to the desert that has swallowed all the surrounding landscape. A tremor of awe and dread passed through as I looked toward the lone pyramid that looked like it was made of Whitby jet. It shimmered faintly in the heat haze, its surface so impossibly smooth, it looked like someone had cut a shape out of reality in the middle of the desert. There were no markings, no banners, no signs of wear or time. It was eternal, as though it had been there long before the sand, long before the stars. I once saw burning away. I felt my vision pull inward, the edges of my sight darkening. The pyramid was no longer a distant monolith. It was everywhere, and it was everything. It grew in my mind like a plague, expanding across every synapse until it filled my entire consciousness. My ears began to ring. This brings me to this morning. My eyes opened, my sheets dripping with sweat. My head still craves the knowledge that had filled my head on the ocean in my dreams. I know it is out there, and I know the figure is guiding me to the pyramid. I am writing this as I am in a cafe next to the docks to get out of the rain. As I write this, I have talked with the captain of a boat called the Emma. He has agreed to take me in as a crew member on his next voyage, as long as I work whilst I am aboard. The ship leaves in an hour, so this will be the last contact I have with the outside world for a while. To my family, I love you, and I will see you soon. I am sorry that this has come so suddenly, but I have felt the call, and this trip is what I do, and I know my destiny is bound to this trip. To everyone reading this, I will update you on my voyage when I finally make land. Please wish me luck. Sincerely, Matthew P. Wcom. That's it for tonight's stories. But the nightmares never end. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload. Got a scary experience of your own? Share it in the comments. I just might feature it in a future video. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some things are scarier than they seem in the dark.